Erica, I do see that now, so all good. Erica, I do see that now, so. It's quite an echo. 5 minutes.
Little bit of a. Okay, we're all set.
We're muted, so we don't have to hear our own delay now, right?
Correct. I turned.
New normal.
I was gonna hand it over, but I think we're good.
For everybody?
Everyone good? Okay, it is 6:04. I'm going to go ahead and call the meeting to order. I'm Jare Gloves, Vice President of Board of Trustees. Trustee President Pryor is not able to make it currently. She will if she can, but she had an emergency, so I will do my best to move the meeting along. Go ahead and do roll call. Vice President Jare Gloves.
Paige Barnum, Secretary.
Sarah Dallas, Vice President for Finance.
Trustee Andrea West.
Trustee Lynette Robinson.
Trustee Sarah Masinski.
Trustee Arlene Way.
Thank you, everyone. So we're going to go ahead and move to our next agenda item. Before we get started, we want to address an incident that happened at a previous board meeting. Fortunately, enough, trustees that have been affected are still currently serving on the board, but we definitely want to address some things that happened. For the trustees that have experienced some really unsavory treatment. It's something that creates a hostile work environment for us. And as one of the trustees that was affected by this and continued behavior by some of the treatment from board members and staff on this board, I think it's important that we do continue to address things that happen in a productive manner. We have Attorney Schofield here in person who is going to speak to the board, the public, in reference to his contributions to the incident that happened at our board meeting that really resulted in some difficulties and some really as best as I can explain it, is some really difficulties that several of the board members experienced. So I'll let Attorney Schofield go ahead and address the board. We'll also be addressing this later in executive session as well. And at our next board meeting, Policy and Governance Committee will have some things to present to the board. One of them are the bylaws for vote, which was the subject of this incident here, which I'm sure Attorney Schofield will speak on. And we'll definitely continue to do the work to make this an inclusive board, a board where everyone feels that they can have a voice. And we'll just continue to do the work, but we will most certainly address any issues of discrimination, unsafe behavior that any trustee on this board or staff experience. So, Attorney Schofield.
Thank you, Vice President Gauss. So this is, I'm appreciative and humbled of the opportunity to be here to have this opportunity to address the board, but most specifically, Vice President Gauss and Trustee West, who I know were personally affected by this. I just want to start by saying I want to apologize to each and every one of the trustees, and specifically the two of you, about my words and tone and approach at the June meeting, which I understand caused both of you and other trustees apprehension. Your word difficulties, I know, is the word you used, and I'm sure is not a good enough word, and I sincerely apologize for it. I want you to both know that this apology is a sincere one. I've reflected a lot on the incident and that the disrespect that you both felt as a result of my words and actions that evening. It shouldn't have happened. It's inconsistent with my person. It's inconsistent with the approach that I've tried to take with clients and colleagues for over going on almost 30 years of a career. And I'm very disappointed in myself and what transpired, because I think we did harm to the process that we all are engaged in. And I certainly accept that my role that night did part of that. My actions lacked judgment and sensitivity. More importantly, they lacked humility. And that is something that I truly believe is consistent with my character. As I indicated to the two of you when I wrote to you earlier this week, I'm not seeking immediate forgiveness. I hope that happens at some point, but rather for you and the board to have a willingness to regain your trust as trustees, as clients. If ultimately you see it within yourselves individually to forgive me, of course, we're welcome to. So thank you very much for the opportunity. I'm happy to answer questions if there are any. I'm certain if there's anything I can do to advance this process of getting us past this incident, I am more than happy to do that.
Thank you, Attorney Schofield. Does anyone have any questions for him? Seeing none, thank you, Attorney Schofield. As I stated, I'm sorry. In public comment. Yes, and you can address the board in public comment, and I'll be moving on to that next. Yes, absolutely. In reference to the board, I don't see any questions, so we can move on from that. Thank you, Attorney Schofield, and we can go ahead and move on to public comment. Would you like to address the board? Yes. Yes, please just come to the mic and say your name and address. Thank you. Yes. The street is.
Michael Logan. I guess my address now is 75 Edgecombe Avenue. My wife is sitting over there, Trustee West. And the attorney that spoke to her in that manner, I had to deal with that. She came home and she was very upset. She was very upset for weeks. So I'm also a leader in the community. I also hold a lot of positions. And for her to come home that upset, and not for me to make her that upset, is the issue. We always ask after the damage is already done. And just think about if somebody did that to your wife, somebody, your daughter, somebody did that to somebody who's just coming here to help out. She felt bullied. She felt disrespected. And I could have came here a long time ago and had another conversation, but we're all adults here. But I want to let you know how you made her feel. And saying you apologize, that's up to her to accept, but it trickled along the family. It came into my household, a household that was peaceful. So you did more damage doing that to her and saying that to her, and she had to bring that home and cry and deal with that. So before you use words or bully people or come out to seem like it's being bullying, think about what you're doing to their house. I did. And I'm speaking up when I did enjoy it. And you have to ask yourself this question. If it was the other way around, would you forgive her or would you seek her job? Would you forgive her or would you not want to be around her anymore? You have to think about it because that's what she had to think about every day. And then on top of that, the shameful act of you sitting here now, you don't even know how she's feeling now. I'm looking at her. I know how she's feeling, but it's just uncomfortable, man. It's really uncomfortable. So you need to think about that. And I wanted to tell you that myself. That's why I came. All right?
Thank you so much. We're not allowed to comment on public comment, but being that this is an issue that we are currently addressing and will still address, I just would like to thank you again for your support and your comment. It definitely means a lot to, I'm sure, to Trustee West, myself as well, being one of the trustees that was definitely affected. Racism and discrimination has no place on this board, and it definitely has lasting effects outside of the immediate situation that it happens in. It's very detrimental, a detrimental experience, and psychologically, it's a difficult thing to deal with. But that being said, like I said, I thank you again for your public comment. We'll move on, but I definitely like to note that this is not, this is not an issue that we're going to sweep under the rug or that we are done dealing with. There's still more resolution that needs to happen with this as well. So thank you for that. Are there any more public comments? Okay, thank you. We'll move on to the audit report.
Good evening. For those of you who don't know me, my name is Chris Healy. I am the audit partner at Mengel Metzger Bar, or MMB, that oversees the audit of the financial statements of the library. And I'm here to go through the results of the audit process and the required communications with those charged with governance, which is the board. So I'm not going to go through in detail the full audit report. I trust that you've had a chance to look through that. I would say there's a lot of information in there. Certainly, if there are any questions when I'm finished, I'm happy to address any questions, or if there are questions that come up after tonight's meeting, I'm happy to be available at any point in time to discuss any questions that there may be. So in regards to our required communications, professional audit standards require us to communicate these items to those charged with governance in any audit that we perform. And so the first part is that you did engage us financial statements. We have done that. The financial statements are in draft format. So pending acceptance tonight by the board, we will move tomorrow with management to finalize those financial statements in their current form. Our professional standards require us to form and express an opinion about whether the financial statements are presented materially correct, are presented fairly in all material respects in accordance with accounting principles generally accepted in the United States. We plan to perform our audit to obtain reasonable, not absolute assurance. So what that means is that we're not looking at everything that happens during the year with their financial transactions, but we perform a risk assessment and we plan and perform procedures responsive to those areas of higher risk. We consider your internal controls, but we don't provide an opinion on your internal controls. However, if we encounter something that we feel is a significant deficiency or material weakness, something that warrants the attention of the board, we would bring that to your attention. I'm happy to report that there are no such items of that nature to report to you for this 2023 audit. We conducted the audit consistent with the plan, timing, and scope that was communicated in the engagement letter. We're required to remain independent, and we maintain that independence through management's review and acceptance of the draft financial statements prior to final issuance. Significant risks that are identified to our audit standards require us to assess whether or not certain items are significant risks, and there are two that are presumed to be significant risks in every audit. These are not items that are a result of anything that the library does or does not do. They're just requirements for us to consider. It's really where we spend more time and effort in the audit process. And those two items are management override of internal controls and revenue recognition. So again, there's no findings to report with respect to the library's processes or procedures with respect to those matters, but that's where we spend some additional time and effort through the audit process. There are no significant changes to accounting policies during the most recent fiscal year ended June 30th, 2023. All the significant accounting policies are disclosed in footnote number 2. All financial statements have estimates in them. The most significant are related to your property, plant, and equipment. So certainly you have a significant amount of property, plant, and equipment across your various branches. That net value that appears on your financial statements is the result of the estimate of how long you'll be able to use that underlying property and equipment. So that's considered a significant estimate. Certainly a building or a vehicle could have a longer or shorter useful life than what you initially estimate when you make those purchases. Compensated absences is reflective of what you believe you will pay employees upon termination, whether it be retirement or separation. That's based on an estimate. The other post-employment benefits liability, which is retiree health insurance, is based on an actual calculation. So there's certainly significant estimation that's happening in that actuarial calculation. And the same is true for your net pension liability, which is the result of the New York State local retirement system plan. That's also an actuarial calculation. So some significant estimates go into that calculation. We evaluate all those estimates as part of the audit process. We believe that the underlying estimates are reasonable in relation to the financial statements. As far as corrected and uncorrected misstatements, management has corrected all misstatements that we encountered during the process. None of those misstatements that we identified were material, either individually or in the aggregate to the financial statements. So what that means is the reports that you see on an ongoing basis throughout the year for this past year, those were correct. We didn't have to make any significant adjustments to those to bring those to financial statement presentation that you see here. We had no disagreements with management. Management provide us with a representation letter that states they were truthful, accurate, honest, gave us access to all the information that we requested, et cetera. And really no other significant findings or matters to report to you in the required communications. So in the actual audit report itself, we did audit the financial statements. We do believe your financial statements fairly present in all material respects the financial position of the library as of June 30th, 2023. That's the highest level of assurance that we can provide, unless you know that we do believe that those financial statements are materially correct. So that's that clean opinion that you're looking for. And again, we had no other significant findings or matters to report to you. So that's what I have, unless there are questions, which I'm happy to answer if there are.
Trustee West, I just have a clarification question on the draft report. There's a couple of spots where it says submitted or, and it says November blank 2023. Is that
will be reflective of the final date. We just put a placeholder. And so when the drafts were going through the process to be put together, it was still November. So that will be changed to, assuming tomorrow is when we receive the representation letter, they'll be dated tomorrow.
Thank you.
Any other questions? I just want to say before I forget, thanks to Adam and the team here. We asked for a lot of information, certainly. So we appreciate, everybody that helps us out in the process. It's always a very smooth process on our side, and hopefully Adam would say the same on his side. So I just want to say, thank you to the team here for being great to work with. It really is a smooth process, and we really appreciate all the effort that they put in.
Thank you, guys. Thank you. So there is no action that needs to happen on that item. We'll move forward with the consent agenda, and we'll go ahead with the minutes. Anybody have any question on anything in the consent agenda?
So I know that we don't necessarily put verbatim what took place in the minutes, but I know we had a lengthy discussion regarding appointing a new trustee. And I really just see what's reflected is what the report was. Or am I remembering incorrectly?
No, that's correct.
We had a lengthy discussion, correct?
Mm-hmm.
So in a minute, maybe I'm looking at the wrong part of the minutes?
No, you're looking at the right part.
Oh, okay.
I think that whenever there is a lengthy discussion, we know we can't get, verbatim. So we usually include something like there was lengthy discussion or there was a discussion. And that line is there. But if there's something that the board wants to include beyond that, we can amend.
Do any of you remember what the summation was of the discussion that ensued?
I mean, there really wasn't any resolution, the summation. I mean, we just talked about it quite a bit, like you said. But in the end of all that, it was, they didn't put anyone forward for a recommendation, so it was still going back to their committee anyways. At the end of that, it was supposed to be going back.
We put Kirsten Broshinsky forward and I thought we were voting on her tonight.
So from what I remember from the meeting, I thought that there was some discussion about getting clarification with how you guys got to that from your committee members. So that's where I left off. Maybe I'm not.
I'm not sure if it was I know that we were supposed to go back to committee for something. Now, again.
Oh, I know what it was.
Okay.
So we did understand how you got to where you got, and it is outlined in here. I think that the question was, is she able to serve because she is on the foundation?
Friends Foundation.
A comment saying that, well, Bridget is on a foundation. Right. But the difference is President is on that foundation by virtue of her position in the board. So I believe that the question was, is Kirsten able to serve as a trustee because she's currently a member on the foundation?
Yeah, the answer is yes, she can serve. I did check on that at the time that she was being considered for Trustee Masinski and the audit and nominating committee.
So I think the question would be maybe to just add in that point that we sought clarification, the board sought clarification.
Yeah.
I'll just give everyone just another minute to look through everything, and then I'll move to adopt the consent agenda. I do have a question. Melanie, I still see your name up here. Are you still on the Friends and Foundation? None. It was a question. If no one has any questions, everyone is ready. I move to accept the consent agenda.
Make a motion that we accept the consent agenda with the necessary.
Yes.
Trustee West, I second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Oh, I'm sorry. 1 no. And it passes, and we will move on to finance.
Good evening. The reports for this meeting cover October 2023, which was 33% of the way through our 2024 fiscal year. Sort of the status quo for my notes. The support and revenue overall were in line with the approved budget, with fees and sales and interest income continuing to trend over budget. Expenditures are trending slightly under budget, due mainly to the payroll and occupancy costs.
Okay, thank you, Sean. So our fiscal 24 tax levy was received in full in the month of October. And as Sean said, pretty straightforward this month. The continuing trends present in the fees and sales, interest income, and full-time, part-time salary lines were addressed during the budget modification process and are expected to reduce our reliance on fund balance usage this year. Of course, we'll be discussing this later in the meeting. If anyone has any questions on any of the reports, be happy to address those. Thank you.
And I'm sure that you have told us this before and I have forgotten, and I apologize for that. How are occupancy costs lower, or where are we not that we would be? Or did I misunderstand?
No, you didn't misunderstand, and we'll get into that. Some of it is utilities. The rate for gas has gone down. So
yeah, you can see if you take a look at the second treasurer's report, you can see the furniture building improvement line has barely been touched. Through October, the building repair maintenance line, only 15% spent. Utilities as well, under budget as of October 31st. So several of those key lines in occupancy are well under budget for October. So that section of the budget is a big reason why we're seeing savings.
Thank you.
Sure.
Want to have any other questions? Seeing none, thank you so much, guys. We appreciate all your work. Go ahead and move on to our next agenda item, committees and liaison reports. Anybody have any events or want to report out about anything interesting that they have done?
This is Trustee West. So I attended the Ban the Book panel at Pine Hills, was it? It was actually very, very good. Executive Director Nikolai was on the panel, the superintendent for the Schenectady School District, one of the professors from UAlbany, as well as one of the she's a professor, but she's an extra title. I can't remember what it was, but she's a professor, attorney C.G. Dodds was on the panel as well. The panel was very, very well run. The conversation, very thought-provoking. Executive Director Nikolai made some great points. And it was a full audience. So it was, I believe there were members from the NAACP there. There were members of the historically Black fraternities and sororities there. There are members of the library there, of course. It was good. It was really, really a great program. So,
okay, well, thank you for sharing.
Yeah, just gonna share a couple of events I went to this past month. It was a really robust variety of events this month. The one you mentioned I was glad to see that someone went to it. I didn't attend, but I earlier this month checked out the Art at APL extra/ordinary exhibit opening. There were easily over 50, 60, like
110.
110. I was going to say there were a lot of people, and that exhibit, I believe, runs into the next year. So I encourage everyone to check it out. The Albany High Band was there, so it was a really diverse representation of our community, which was excellent. I also had the opportunity to go to the Winter Classics String Wind concert at Pine Hills this past weekend. Again, another really great attended event. I think there were 40 plus people at that one. It was a harpist. I don't know the proper word for it, and a flautist. And it was a really good spackling of people of all ages. You know, people are really, they're like tapping their foot throughout the concert. So that was really exciting to see. And last but not least, this past week, there was the 50 Years of Women in Hip Hop with Dr. Janelle Hobson. And that was another great event where there were dozens of people, I think 30 to 40 again, and a rapid, a really engaging conversation afterwards amongst the community and Dr. Hobson. So I just want to commend the library and all the staff that really put a lot of effort and thought into these events. And I look forward to programming in 2024.
I would like to take a moment to share, if it hasn't been shared already. I'm really proud of the library for this in terms of this community outreach. It is, we're going to be collaborating with the Frank Chapman Memorial Institute to set up an opportunity to expand reading over there. We're going to be collaborating with the Red Bookshelf. We're going to set up a reading room that's going to service young people from the community and then also our seniors. So I'm excited about that. The other thing is that there's conversation about providing services to a senior citizens home. Those guys aren't able to get here all the time that easily, but we're having conversations about what we can do. And I'm so grateful to Andrea for wanting to be involved in this and being available to provide consulting services and, being a real support. And folk are appreciative of that. So I'm looking forward to the planning meeting, and we're going to make some good things happen to engage more people in reading. So thank you.
So mine is, I feel like, very anticlimactic, but I did wander the exhibit at Pine Hills. And I want to point out that I did not touch anything. It's all like fiber art, and it is, I really, really, really wanted to touch it and I did not. But I enjoyed it, and so that's fine.
There's a felted rock at the reference desk that you can touch if you want. It's an example for people to touch. So
yes, I like the braided things that were like bumpy on the wall. I really wanted to squish them, and I didn't.
Okay, thank you everyone for sharing. And we're going to move on to the Upper Hudson Library System report.
Okay, so we had a report from the auditors. They did a financial review and they determined that we were in good standings. The budget, the financial status of Upper Hudson Library System is in a good place. And they were not aware of any material issues that would affect, the work that we're doing. So that panned out all right. There was a special recognition of Antonio Booth, who has been involved as a trustee with Upper Hudson Library System for over 10 years. He's retired. And so he's been declared, there was a resolution presented. And so he is always attached to us as emeritus trustee. And so that's going to go on forever. And he was really honored by that. That was exciting. And we were all honored to be a part of that. There were 2 committee reports. Again, the Finance Committee echoed the same thing, that we're in good financial stead. The 2024 Upper Hudson Library System and Central Library System budgets were approved unanimously. So at that session, the Expedition Committee gave their final report. Over 40,000 people participated in that event. And at our closing event, about 600 people attended that closing party. That was quite lovely. That was in October. And they're anticipating that the next time we do this will be in about 5 years if member libraries are interested in participating. The 24 2024 committee assignments were approved. And I'm being transitioned from the service committee to the finance committee for the upcoming year. And I guess we decided not to meet in December. We gave ourselves a break. And that was pretty much it for the work that we did in that session.
Anybody have any questions for, no questions? We're gonna move on. Thank you. We're gonna move on to, nominating committee.
Thank you. So
Oh, I'm so sorry. Audit and finance.
Oh.
I'm sorry.
I was already in jumping.
Yeah, I know. I had to get you early. I'm sorry.
I would have shared the floor. Trustee Barnum, myself, our director and Adam met on November 27th. And we went over the proposed fiscal year 2024 budget modifications. This needs to be done a couple of times a year, once or twice for the final and somewhere almost in the middle, just to make all of the columns balance. And what attached are the budget memorandum, budget sheets, and I'm not going to go over that. I have in the minutes for the meeting that some lines down and some revenue is up. What expenditures are down 7.3. Payroll and related costs are down 1.7%. Occupancy costs remained unchanged, with $10,000 moved from utilities to custodial supplies. Andrea mentioned that gas cost a little less, and LED lighting also helped reduce the costs. The materials and services will remain the same, but moving 5,000 from books and put it towards the digital content because that is being used so heavily. The administrative and miscellaneous costs are down 9%, and IT remains unchanged. So I want to commend the sound fiscal management. The increases in interest rates. Is it 5%? I'm getting 5%. 5%, which was unheard of a year or so ago. Unfilled positions and additional E-rate funding results in $177,000 reduction in fund balance instead of the budgeted $329,492. So that means less money to balance our budget. We go less into our fund balance, which is a wonderful thing. Later on, there's going to be a vote to accept the amendments. And I also, at this point, want to just say that meeting dates for you to consider January 29th, 2024, date of February 5th, 2024, February 15th, 2024, and then please put on all of your calendars that on February 27th, 2024 is the trustee budget vote meeting. That's where this board will approve next year's budget that may or may not go to the voters. We adjourned, and I appreciate the people that added to the discussion.
Thank you for that. Anybody have questions?
Trustee West, I have a couple of questions. So, because as you said, we'll be expected to vote on this later on in the meeting. So I have a couple. One is, so you're moving 10,000 from utilities to custodial supplies, which I do understand the reasoning. But a question with that comes, I know we're still getting complaints about the bathroom on the first floor. Will any of those supplies be used to, ensure that it's clean or go toward having extra person?
I really,
Sorry.
I really wish that $10,000 could fix the problem. And when it comes to the first floor use of the bathrooms, but this 10,000 for custodial supplies is actually for supplies across the district. It's not connected to, it is connected to the Washington Avenue bathrooms in the sense that we use the same supplies in those bathrooms as we do in others, but it is unfortunately not going to help us address that issue in any kind of definitive way.
Since we're talking about the bathrooms, I just want to get in here because, so are we able to get paper towels in there? Like a paper towel dispenser, like a better trash can? Like, can we make it look better in there?
I can take those suggestions to the facilities manager. Of course, we have a finite budget for maintenance and supplies, and we allocate it very carefully. And when it comes to making a change to the Washington Avenue bathrooms, that would be a district-wide change, like something like changing out the towel dispensers would probably mean changing them out all over, all of the branches. I think we have, just because it's environmentally sound, to have them versus paper towels.
So I've been in the bathroom down here in reference to hygiene and the amount of people that use the bathroom, the kind of clientele that use the bathroom and what they're using it for. I would highly, highly recommend paper towels in the bathroom. It just creeps me out just even thinking about it. But yeah.
I can understand that.
That would be is that really that big of a bottom line of the paper towel dispenser?
So
if I bought a paper towel dispenser, you can put it in the bathroom.
No,
that's very generous of you. But actually, the problem that we run into with paper towels is that people put them down the toilet. And that becomes a real plumbing cost issue. And so if we've got, air blowers, it cuts down on the use of paper, which is good environmentally. But yeah, it has its own host of problems in terms of
this is it's hygienically it is disgusting, and I'll be the person to say it up here. I've been I dread. I think at the main library, at Central Library, I think the condition of the first floor bathroom, it's detrimental to my health.
Thank you for those comments. What we'd really love to see are bathrooms on the street level outside of the library, so that people have an option outside the library in addition to inside. I think
well, that's not
amazing, but
that's
obviously it's not
like a porta potty.
Yeah,
like the Portland Blue, they have these stainless steel standalone bathrooms in cities like Austin, Texas, where I just was actually, and I took a picture of one because I was thinking, wow, that would be great for right outside near the bus stop. But that's obviously a city issue. But even if we had someone, coming in 5 times a day, I don't know that it would ever be to the level that, would satisfy, someone who is looking for.
Maybe this is.
I think it's a
a
basic standard.
A minor question. How many times is the bathroom cleaned throughout the
We address it on an as needed basis. So if there's a real issue with feces on the wall or something like that, that's obviously with facility staff responding to problems. So obviously, you make a call, talk to facility staff. And yet they have duties across 7 branches as well. So we have to,
So each branch doesn't have a dedicated maintenance person?
Each branch has a dedicated maintenance person, but we have to share the maintenance people across our branches, especially their vacations, holidays that.
Oh, so I definitely get that, right? But I don't think I'll just put it on me. I don't think what I'm asking for is a big ask, especially if you have essentially 2 bathrooms for the amount of foot traffic we have here on the first floor to really seriously be concerned about hygiene. I think it's very serious concern. We're talking about germ spreading on sink handles, on the door handles. I mean, I've been in there multiple times, so I've seen it for myself. So, I mean, just if we're talking about servicing our clientele, I don't think that that's a big a big ask in reference to like costs for. I don't. Is it just me? Am I?
I mean,
Who's been in the bathroom down there?
yeah, it's,
Yeah. So I mean, in your opinion, when you went in there, did you? I didn't want to. There were no people down.
I agree. I just think it's a bigger conversation.
It is, but I mean, I'm a small ask is all is my only point. It's a small ask, being that we were on that topic. Okay, I'm sorry. I interrupted.
Nope. So my next question is, 'cause again, we're looking at payroll modification. I mean, at budget modifications, payroll and related costs are down 1.7%. So I would ask Executive Director Nikolai, how many positions are open that we are anticipating would be filled prior to the end of the fiscal year?
Well, that's a bit of a moving target because every month we have resignations or we have people moving on, and every month we have new people coming in. But right now, I mean, I think we have 7 or 8 positions open, and I can go into more detail about them during my report if you like.
So should the 1.7% really be used in calculating the budget modifications?
The 1.7%, I believe, is more of a like looking back, and looking at what we would have spent if our positions had been filled. So it's not necessarily, we're not like robbing our future selves, if that's the concern that you're raising. Yeah.
Because I think you referenced that we were voting on it tonight, correct?
We're later on under new business, it's to approve the budget modifications up to now, but the budget is a moving document and can be, as you know, modified.
So is that correct, Adam, that 1.7% is a look back, not a look forward?
So the way that the salaries modifications were generated, basically we looked at what we had spent on salaries right up to when we did the modification, which was under budget, particularly in the full-time line. And then we took the remainder of the pay periods and calculated what those pay periods would cost had we a full staff, which we are most likely not going to have due to ongoing vacancies, resignations that we're seeing, every month. So by no means are these numbers set in stone, but that's how it was generated. Yeah, I can certainly talk about this. I was intending to talk about this more under new business, where this is coming up for vote.
Thank you.
Sure.
So you're wanting to take more questions in new business is what you're saying? Okay.
That's sort of what I was
No
expecting.
problem.
Yeah.
No problem. Thank you for that. And we are going to move on to nominating committee.
All right, I'll talk now.
Okay.
So we met recently on December 4th, and touched base on that we would be voting today on the vacancy, and spent most of our time discussing preparing for the election. And that, the minutes are there and I don't want to read them to you guys, but I do want to point out a couple of things. What Melanie sent us in the nominating committee and President Pryor a document of places, entities that have been reached out for recruiting candidates. Like emails will get sent, letters get sent. Hey, the board is, these positions are open, consider running for trustee. we will send that out to the rest of the board very soon. We didn't want to do it before this meeting because there's a lot in this meeting, but we would like everyone to take a look at the list and, add anywhere that they feel is good and important for outreach and recruiting trustees, because this is, we want to be able to have as diverse and inclusive a board coming, or at least, running as we possibly can. And so we'd like everyone's feedback before our next meeting on January 2nd. We'll send all of this out, but I want to bring that to everyone's attention that that's coming, and that, we would appreciate feedback. And then also we have established a rough timeline of how things are going to go coming up into the election. So in January is going to be a lot of the outreach for candidate recruitment. February, we will be scheduling the So You Want to Be a Trustee meeting. We'd like to, as we're going through and scheduling that, we'd like to open that up to any board members that want to be on that panel to discuss trustee experiences. We'd like to welcome all experiences. Then in April, petitions from candidates are going to be due. In May, we're going to plan on the Meet the Candidates Forum, and there'll be the election at the end of it.
Anyone have any questions? Thank you so much. No questions, so we're going to go ahead and move on. Does anyone have any upcoming committee meetings scheduled that they want to share that they haven't shared?
January 2nd for nominating committee.
Yeah, thank you.
At 6.
Thank you. Policy and governance will have a committee meeting before the end of December, and the date will definitely be sent out. Anybody else have any upcoming committee meetings they would like to share?
I already shared.
Yeah. Nothing else. Thank you, everyone. We'll go ahead and move on to the director's report.
Okay, thanks, everyone. I want to just start by talking a little bit about how our Saturday programming has gone so far. So our new service hours, as you all know, went into effect on November 6th. And we were really pleasantly surprised that Saturday morning story time at Washington Avenue on that first Saturday saw about 20 kids and caregivers, and the afternoon science program saw over 50 attendees, which delighted us because, it was the first time in a long time that we've had one, let alone two programs here at Washington Avenue. Well, the story time had been going, but the science program was brand new. So that's been going well. And we've seen attendance from anywhere from 2 to 35 attendees at programs that we've run at our other locations. We're really excited to, and staff are enthusiastic about putting interesting and exciting programs at our 3 Saturday locations and trying things out. We also saw a slight downtick in incidents as compared with November of 2022, which I'm really happy about, although we're still seeing too many incidents happening across the district. But with the colder weather happening and the seasonal effect of the holidays and anxiety levels rising in the community due to various situations that people are in, this is the time of year when we do see an uptick in incidents. So we've been supporting staff by reaching out after an incident happens, by following up, offering EMP when in any case that it's useful. And that's my commitment to the staff. We also continue to make the safety committee, of course. And I do want to mention that there were 3 loss of library privileges in November. One was related to threatening conduct. Actually, all 3 were related to threatening conduct towards either a patron or a staff member. So that's a down. A highlight, I did participate in panels. which was really rewarding for me and very honored to be part of the banned books panel, of course, that Trustee West referenced earlier. And I also spoke on the Serve Albany Brunch panel about the need for space in Albany. And that was specifically about meeting room space or business space for growing his business, things like that. Other highlights of the month, there was a ULB, an APL staff meeting about borrower access and how we might partner with Albany to increase access for all ULB students. And I'm excited to move forward with that initiative. And UAlbany is also committed to exploring that. So we're going to be meeting in the new year to develop that further. And I'll of course bring you reports that's in support of our community engagement strategic plan goal. Let's see. Another quick note on programming. We only had to cancel one program in all of November because there was illness on part of the scheduled speaker. But again, we've been doing really well with these programs, and our other statistics are looking better. Door count continues to rise, with to-date door count in this calendar year 42% higher than last year. Few December programs coming up that I wanted to call your attention to. Most of these that are listed here I have actually already passed. I did have a really sensational and well-attended period party on December 5th. It was all about menstrual health and all educating the community about all that you need to know. And it was attended by both tweens and parents. That was the first of its kind here, and the staff were really excited about it. We partnered with a great organization to run it. So I just wanted to call that one out. We also have Cook the Book, Spit in the Kitchen coming up tomorrow. If you happen to be free from 1 to 2 p.m. at Bachwich, and your tree wreath making tomorrow night at Albany. So November was also a busy month in terms of attendance at a lot of staff attended the New York Library Association conference, which was held in Saratoga. And that's always a great opportunity to inspire new thinking in our staff and new initiatives at the library. So we always bring a lot back from these conferences. I want to call out a few of our partnerships. We participated in the annual Lantern Parade, plus 2 lantern making workshops, and gave away lantern kits. And we also put in the Braddock Center for a Saturday fruit leather program, and with Albany Barn for fine arts programs. So our partnerships are going strong. We are also bringing partners into our branches. I would note that In Our Own Voices came to Arbor Hill, West Hill to do some free HIV Hep C testing and providing information about health resources to patrons on sexual health, and specifically sexual health of the LGBT and POC community. So, and I want to call out Arbor Hill West Hill specifically because we have a new branch manager there who's doing a really great job. So here's a shout out to Nolan. And across I mean, there's always a lot to share. The Delaware Stitch Angels completed their annual yarning of the branch, which, if you don't know what a yarning is, that's when group decorates trees, bushes, benches, and fences with knitted hats, gloves, and scarves. So it just brings a lot of color and joy to the branch for all to appreciate. And we hosted Sustainability Scoops at North Albany, which is a partnership with the Sustainability Committee in Albany. They have information handout and ice cream, so that's why it's called Sustainability Scoops. Always popular to have. Let's see, and in the operations section, you might be interested to see our current open positions, which actually number is a little bit less than what I quoted. I think I said 7 to 8 right now. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. 6 positions open. We are interviewing for the HR Generalist 3 now, so good candidate in there, and I'll keep you posted on that. Yeah. We also have a little bit of an expansion of shelving happening early 2024 for box. So that'll be a nice improvement to that branch and those collections. Bach branch is one of our highest circulating branches, so the space will be well used. Any questions or things I can expand on for you?
I don't, a question is just a comment for the board, that we, last meeting, there was a comment, by executive director that we were, still looking into the service hours. I think that is something that we should still put on the agenda, for next, board meeting, as well to revisit the service hours and at least have a conversation about it, being that that was, a response to, a public comment. Anyone else have any questions or comments? Seeing none, we can go ahead and move on to unfinished business. And that is the appointment of trustee. So trustee, are you?
So I don't know how I do this. So please, anybody chime in if I'm doing this wrong. The nominating committee met a couple of times, but we reviewed procedures for how we may identify a trustee to fill the vacancy and opted to go via the election results. Our first candidate, the next most winning candidate, was not able to serve at this time. So then we moved to the next one, Kirsten Broshinsky, who is interested in serving at this time. And the nominating committee would like to put her forward to serve on the remainder of, not the remainder of the term, but to serve in the Thomas McCarthy's vacancy until the May election. And then once the May election happens, that partial term will be filled in by the person who receives the sort of running up number of votes. So, and I don't think I have to put a motion forward.
The committee is the motion. So
Right.
you're the first and we're going to need a second. So you just really have to, so you just have to formalize it and you just need to say we move the nominating committee.
So I don't know that we really need a sex. So and I could be wrong. My understanding of parliamentary procedures, if something is coming out of committee, unless it's just a committee of one, it doesn't need a second because
We can go straight to vote.
right. But clarifying. I think one of the other things that we had talked about, see, it's coming back, is that I feel like I asked. I mean, not that we were interviewing. We get to talk to her like before we say, yep, let's go ahead. And I think they said, good.
No, it's not that. I didn't say that, but being that nominating committee is, they're putting it to the board. If you as a board want to have more conversations about it, they're pushing it forward for a vote. But if we as a board want to have more conversation about it and want to have a conversation with her, we as a board can do that. They want forward for a vote.
Mhm.
Is that right? Or
We are. Yes. Pushing the appointment, the person's name, Kirsten. But I think I'm confused as you wanted the board to, before this, we got to this point, you're saying you wanted the board to be able to have speak to her, right? I am trying to make all of my dots connect from the last meeting to this one.
Which is a very good, thank you. It's a very good,
Right. But I
point.
mean, at this point, we're kind of really, it's because we have a motion, we're in discussion, it's kind of moot, I think. I don't know.
But it's not, because we can do what we want. If we want to, if the consensus is after we've discussed it, this is the first time as a board we've discussed the nomination that they came up with as a committee. So if as a committee, as a board, if we want to discuss, who they put forward and what our action is going forward in reference to speaking to the person or whatever, we can do that as a board. That's fine. Which is a great point that you raised, and, I'm in favor of that. I don't see anything wrong with that. Anybody else have any comments on it, or? Trustee Pryor is here. President Pryor is here.
Thank you. Am I on? My feeling is that the nominating committee took the time, they put it through, they vetted her, and now they're, am I on? And now they're, bringing it to the vote. They brought it last month, at that time. So if we wanted to, at that time, put that motion in for them to, present. So at this point, as Trustee Gauss, Vice President Gauss has just mentioned, that, we're late in the game. So, I think they did a wonderful job, vetting and pushing their candidate. And then they also, had a detailed, how they came up with the, candidate and her, qualifications. So.
Yeah, I'd like to second, the input you just gave us. I'd also like to add that by virtue of going through the work to say we're looking at past election results, Kirsten Brzezinski also was present at the candidate forum, and we had an opportunity, and I believe that's recorded. So I've recently revisited her comments there. I found her very engaged, well-spoken, and just anecdotally, I have seen the nominee at an insane number of library events. So I 100% see her showing out, turning up at our library events, which really is a testament to me at how committed she is to exploring all the facets of the library. So that, coupled with the fact that she was present at the candidate forum, she obviously, even though she wasn't elected at the time, is now, is in a role with the Friends Foundation, which to me is, again, just really emphasizes how committed she is to this organization and realizing, helping it to realize its best. So that's, I personally don't have, feel the need that for me, to feel confident in, supporting the nominating committee's, position to support her. I'm comfortable doing that just based on the reasons I've outlined personally.
We have a motion on it.
So we have a motion on the floor to accept. We don't need a second. Okay, so all in favor? All in favor to move on the nominee? One, two, three. Does it pass? But 3, 4, 5. Okay. The nominee passes.
Thank you.
You have to do the rest of the vote.
Okay. Okay.
Yeah, you gotta call for the rest of the vote.
Call for the rest of the vote. Oh, all in favor was 5 to 4. 4 noes, 1 abstention. Oh, 6. Okay. All right. I'm sorry. I'm coming in late and I.
3, 4, 5, 6. I don't think you need to, I think you just need to complete the.
Right. So are you abstaining?
So you said all in favor?
All
You
in
said
favor.
All opposed?
All opposed? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. 6 in favor and all opposed? 1 and 1 abstention. Right? The nominee passes with a majority 6.
Thank you.
Thank you.
President Pryor,
Yeah.
can I just thank the nominating committee for the work in moving this forward? And do we get this person on the audit and finance committee?
You do. We had actually, when we met with her, we had spoken with her about stepping in on, in the remaining committee vacancies, and that is one that she is prepared to step in on.
I'm so sorry. Please forgive me. I thought that the committee assignments were done by the executive board as a whole.
Mhm.
Okay. So we can't just randomly tell her this is, and I
Okay.
get it if the other committees are full, but I still think that we need to go through the procedure and do it as an executive.
That's totally fair and an error on our part.
Okay. The executive committee has been having difficulty in meeting, so that may be a moment, but the vacancy that the previous trustee left was on the audit and finance. So I think that would be appropriate. But we can meet. Okay, so overview of upcoming committee meetings. So, we're not on, we're on 9 too. Oh, okay. I'm sorry. You know what? Okay, we're on 9 too. Oh, update on the senior exemption.
Thank you, President Pryor. So, board's convenience, because the memo was posted late, I brought hard copies of the privilege memo with everyone or for everyone this evening, and it's in front of you. As the board will recall, at last month's meeting, board passed a motion directing the executive director and myself, along with staff, to begin exploring how to implement the senior exemption, senior citizen tax exemption retroactively, much in the same manner that the city school district did in October. So after Andrew, Adam, and I talked about what some of the issues that we face in getting the plan in place. From an accounting perspective, Adam has some concerns about the system's ability to generate those checks and how short of individually entering every one of the recipients in. We're looking for opportunities, ways to potentially short circuit that. Adam, I don't know if you've made any progress on that issue yet. And we also began searching for a business that might be able to help us facilitate that process. So far, that has not been successful. I've talked to several taxing jurisdictions at this point, and they aren't aware of anyone. But I also put a reach out to some folks in the legal community. A couple people came up with firms that are focused on settlement administration and might have the ability to do something similar. So we're going to reach out to them. I told Executive Director Nikolai and Mr. Stump that I would reach out to the 3 governmental entities that are involved to talk about their roles, how they can facilitate this with us. I spoke to City Treasurer Sean Farr, who confirmed, unfortunately, that he did not have a system that could help us with that process. I thought he might be the person that was most likely able to, given the number of checks that they issue, but unfortunately he couldn't. I also spoke to Joe Karras for the school district. He is going to be very, very helpful in process, both guiding us as to where they had difficulties, but also providing us the numbers and the raw data that they used for calculations and the computations. He has the addresses of the properties that are eligible for the exemption. He has the maximum exemption amounts programmed in the system, and he's done a first review calculation of what numbers for the library's exemption run would look like. And I confirmed with him again today that he's on board with helping us any way they can. what was shocking to me and what I did not realize is how long a process that this has been. This became public, I think, with the school district in August when the board took it up, but they're looking at this issue even before this. The board finally passed their resolution in October, and the checks were just finally issued this month. So it is exactly the process that we've done. And he said he has where they ran into roadblocks and along the way. The last person I spoke to was City Assessor Trey Kingston, who confirmed some of the issues that we discussed at the last board meeting on the retroactivity and whether it was, actually legally provided for under law. But he also confirmed that he was involved in providing the data that was needed for the calculation of the exemptions. His office would support us in that process as well. He too did not know of anyone that was in the business of helping get refunds of this nature issued, but he said he would pose the question to his assessor committee and see if they had any thoughts for us. One of the things that came up in the conversation that I had not thought of, but became obvious when somebody brought it up, was the library adopting this exemption for the very first time? Adopting the additional exemption amounts, which is what happened at the school district level this year. What I was afraid of, that question came to mind, is that we would have to go back to the very beginning and adopt the exemption the first time, which would make it much, much, much more expensive than $67,000 ballpark number that we talked about at the last meeting. What I learned from Assessor Kingston and Mr. Harris is that without any understanding of how the library levy has been subject to the exemption code that codes this exemption for as long as the school district has. We think that probably what happened is when the school district adopted the exemption for the first time, it got applied to the library tax levy at that time. Whether that was correct or not, arguably it probably wasn't. But the good news is we are in the same exact situation as the school district in that we were voting on the additional exemption. Now we're not having to go back and refund people for the entirety of the exemption, which would make this a lot more expensive, hundreds of thousands of dollars as opposed to 67. He also confirmed for me that because that's the case, they are treating the role as having adopted the exemption for us on a prospective basis. So if you did nothing to stop the process, when they issue next year's levy, they will base it on the exemption being in place for the library as well at the higher level. So the options that you've got are to continue to retroactively apply this and push through the refunds, do nothing at all, or affirmatively reduce the exemption. And obviously the will of the board was clear last month, and so we're moving forward, we're pushing forward on the refunds. In the materials that I gave you the form that the school district adopted. So something very, very similar to that is what we as the library board would to adopt. I would suggest, based on what I know now, that if we adopted that in January, we'd have a relatively narrow window to get the refunds issued. And so we'd like to come back to you in advance of the January meeting to say, yes, we're ready, and therefore the resolution can be on the action item agenda on January, and that will trigger the refund process. Or if we haven't solved some of these accounting issues that we're still facing, we may come back to you with a further report in January saying, hold off until February to pass your resolution, because once you act, time really does start clicking for Adam and his department to get the checks issued. We want to do that obviously as quickly as we can, but we need to make sure that he actually has the capability and capacity to do it, and that we have enough time to get all several hundred. So I'm happy to answer any questions. We'll go into more detail on the things that are discussed, but we are in the process, and everything does point to the fact that this is doable. And we're going to continue down the path so the board can vote on implementing the resolution. or the exemption, excuse me.
Does interest get accrued? Or is it a flat?
No, this is, I mean, there's no duty. So it would be at the time that the library acts to implement it. And government doesn't pay interest back to people, it charges to you. So
So I have a question. So, if the library has been coupled with the school district in the previous exemptions, it seems like it's a 2-for-1 kind of thing. They do an exemption, so it automatically goes to us. So the only reason that we're in a situation now is because the school district did it retroactive, right? So now we have an additional that it didn't get automatically past us because they kind of manually did it retroactively. Is that how this is working?
I think
So-
that's, yeah, I think that's good. That's a good option.
Okay, so the future levy is gonna automatically go to us, so you don't have to act on that. But for this, since the refund, so this is part of my question. Since the refund checks are proving to be such a problem, if you will, is it a way we could credit the next year's levy as opposed to like giving a discount as opposed to doing a refund check? So instead of giving you $25, take $25 off of your bill. Would that be another option?
Vice President Gauze, it's a great question. I think I know the answer, but I don't want to guess. So if it's okay with you, I will get a confirmed answer to that question for you in January. I think the answer is no, because you're straddling tax years. You can't do that. It is what the school district tried to accomplish this year with respect to the people who had already paid, who had not already paid, is basically to give them a credit, not a refund. I think that's one of the things that complicated their system, but I think it would be further complicated by straddling a tax year. But I will get you an answer to that question before the board meeting, because I think it's a great mechanism if it could work. It's something certainly worth looking at.
Mm-hmm.
Just to give you a little bit more information on the first question that you sort of asked, I don't know if that was correct. What happened with the library board never having actually adopted the exemption? It's certainly what did happen, and it's not necessarily a bad thing, but I do think that it may be a good idea for this board to get in the habit of adopting the exemptions independently so that you're making decisions on your own levy. But as of right now, the way this has been set up is if you don't do anything at all, they'll apply the new heightened exemption in 2024, 25.
So okay, so now I have another 2 questions. So who's making the decision to automatically attach both entities? Because that would be, if we we're separated from the beginning, someone's making a decision to attach both entities. So okay.
I think probably the answer is someone who was applying the exemption however many years ago when it was first adopted. Whether that was somebody in the school district or the city or the assessor's office, I don't know. It's coded that way at the assessor's office, so it might have been something that was done at the assessor's office. But I think the school district would be happy to hear from us as to what our intention is. It's existed that way for a long time. I don't even know if we know how long, but this exemption's been available for, dozens of years anyway.
I do have one last question and that's it. So in reference to the previous question I had with the credit, and you said it's straddling tax year, so it possibly might not be able to be done. If we hold it and don't vote on it until next tax year, and it's worded in a way that it maybe the verbiage would get around it being a credit for this tax year. I mean, I don't know how to word it, but is that an option maybe?
Certainly something we can explore. Remember, the difficulty is we don't actually collect our own taxes, so we'd have to talk to the school district about their comfort level of that. But we can do that. I mean, Mr. Karras's office is, He's been great so far, and I'm sure he can help us if there's a way to do it.
Okay. Thank you.
We'll also try and solve the problem on the checks. If there's a way to do the checks, it does get it done and over with as quickly as possible. So we'll try and have options.
Thank you.
I guess I want to not take us down a rabbit hole, but I'm going to ask anyway, so I apologize. In terms of a potential credit for the following year, not to sound morbid, but if somebody died, they're not, like their estate would still get a check cut, but they may not still have the property to get the tax refund.
So even things other than death could affect that. I don't know enough to know right here, and I will try and get informed, but I think those are the types of reasons that may not be able to straddle the tax shares.
Just curious.
For lack of just in the simplest terms, March 1st is the date on which you determine the exempt status of properties for all of the ensuing tax collections in that year. And if facts change before or after March 1st, it may just limit our ability to do that. But let me try and find out. Certainly the credit idea, if it's doable, would save a lot of effort if that's a possibility. So we'll run it down.
Thank you.
I just have a question. Are we still under the understanding that processing over time and not one time? So everyone I thought we had visited that as well.
I mean,
that is not.
It's a question. I think ultimately, Adam, no, well, I don't know if it'll make a difference whether we issue all the 700 checks at once or do them in a group or not, but it may take some stress off the system. I know that we're not. I mean, I think once you tell us to move forward, issue the refunds, we've got to move forward pretty quickly. So
thank you. Any other discussion on the senior exemption? Right, thank you. We're moving on. Budget modification.
Okay, I'm going to hand it over to Director of Finance Adam Stump, and we'll both address your questions as they.
Okay, so Sarah touched on some of the points from the modification earlier. So if you take a look at the budget mod draft document, you can see exactly what we've changed here. So the modification resulted in a budget that only requires about $177,000 of fund balance usage as opposed to the $329,000 that was in the approved budget. The modifications we made are really just a series of updated projections based on the trends that we've seen up to this point in the year. Some revenue lines are trending far over, fees and sales and interest income being the prime examples there. Some expenditure lines trending far under, tax cert payments, for example, and salaries as well. So we'll just start at the top here. So you can see in the tax levy section, we have accounted for the possibility that we are going to have to refund this money to the taxpayers. So that 62,000 and change being reduced from the operating levy is what that represents. Fortunately, we feel that that entire amount is likely to be covered by our other revenue lines. Fees and sales, interest income, like I said, are the driving factors there, but also rent income and our federal grant line. We were able to increase. You can see the remainder of the budget. I mean, there's very little change to occupancy, materials and services, administrative, no change to IT. It's really just the payroll and related costs section that has the remainder of the modifications. And like I said, that's really based on what we've spent towards payroll so far this year and what we would expect to spend the remainder of the year if our staffing model was fully staffed. The New York State retirement system figure, that is an exact figure. That is what our annual payment is for this fiscal year. And the payroll taxes line, that corresponds directly with the full-time and part-time salaries lines and the modifications to them. So ultimately, like I said, I mean, this is just a series of updated projections. Salaries in particular is a moving target. It's liable to change at any time with resignations and just ongoing vacancies that don't get filled. So we could do another modification in 4 months and come up with an even more accurate figure. But where we stand today, this is what we feel is likely to be a more accurate series of projections. So if anyone has any questions, please go ahead. Thanks.
Yeah, so I just had a couple questions because it seems I know some of the costs because of, you know, the cut in staff, payroll, resignation, that sort of thing. But it seems like some of the things that would correlate with decreased staff don't decrease as well. Like programming, for example, wouldn't that decrease if you don't have as many staff, if you have such a cut on staff? Training, travel, like would those things be cut if payroll would be cut?
I'm happy to address that. So programming is fortunately not something that is greatly impacted, generally speaking, across the library when a librarian resigns or when a staff member resigns from a particular location. The programming has already been planned for the most part, and then we supplement with programming from the Central Program Committee. In the case of a branch where we have a significant shortage over a duration of time, like we did this past summer at Arbor Hill West Hill, we did see an impact to the programming, and I think you saw that in our numbers. So we do have, like I said, systems in place to make sure that we have programming consistently across the district, as much regular programming as possible. There are times when staffing does impact it, but this budget modification and the dots that you're connecting, sorry, what I wanted to say is that this modification didn't actually impact, or the staffing modification, the payroll modification did not impact our ability to deliver programming.
And this is due to how many additional staff leaving in reference to the salaries and like how many people? Is this 1, 2 people?
Well, it keeps, I mean, it changes every month. So it's, you know, some months it's no one and some months it's like 5 people, and it varies. So in terms of a tally of all the people who resigned over the course of the last 6 months, I mean, we could definitely provide those numbers for a better understanding of what our turnover is looking like. But we don't have that information right here, right now.
So seeming like we're still having high turnover and trending, the loss is still trending higher than the new employees.
It's getting better, actually. But yeah, sure. Do you have a mic? Okay.
So when we have an opening, so that in that 6-week period, salary because it's vacant while search, and that adds up for multiple positions. So if you take a look at this month's executive director report, where it shows you who we hired for this month versus okay, thank you. So
it's that lag of when we have a position open versus when we hire. So if you look at the executive director report, you'll see we had, don't have it pulled up right here in front of me, but we had like 5 positions that we hired and we had 6 positions open. So we did like ultimately fill those positions, but there's going to be that lag, and that lag is where we have the money saved. So as Adam stated, what we're seeing right now in the budget is that savings of the positions when they were vacant, projected going from 23 forward. We're budgeted to have all of our positions filled, even though we have 6 positions, 7 positions open right now. We're projecting it as if they're all filled. And so that's what the budget is. It's taking into account those vacancies that we've had for the first quarter of the year, but expecting them to be completely filled for the other quarters.
So I get that, but this is, I guess the issue is there's always been a trend of not having enough staff, right? So at what point are we going to have sufficient staff to have an accurate projection from the very beginning? Like the amount of vacancies that we have, and staffing is such an issue. I guess it just doesn't add up to me, but that's fine. We can move on. For the training, what's the training and the travel?
Training and travel is like when we send people to the New York Library Association conference, it pays for their travel, to their gas money and any hotel accommodations that would be necessary.
Okay, and that didn't decrease any. What's the tax cert payments?
Adam will answer this question. The tax cert payments are variable year to year, but go ahead, Adam.
Yeah, we actually haven't received a tax cert bill since February of 2023. These are bills that we just started receiving over the last couple of years related to, Bob can probably correct me if I'm missing anything here, but properties that are reassessed at different values. Sometimes the school district will come back to us and say, we actually owe tax payments on those properties. And so a couple of years back, we got bills that amounted to over 100,000 for the year. And we haven't received any this year so far. So the modification here, reducing it to 50,000 is perhaps even conservative. It's just we don't know when we're going to receive these bills next. When we have received them, they've usually been tens of thousands of dollars at a time. So we don't want to reduce that to 0 and then be surprised at the end of the year if we get a $40,000 bill.
What you said?
Would you be able to comment on that, Bob, in more detail?
Right. So if a taxpayer, their assessed value of their property and seeks to make it lower, and they either settle the case with the assessor or they have a court rule in their favor, they're entitled to refunds if they've paid taxes on that incorrect assessed value. This is, I want to say maybe 6 years ago, the legislature changed the rule that libraries had to participate in that refund process. School district public libraries didn't have to prior to that. And so that's what this budget line covers, is when we get those unexpected requests for refunds from the school district because they're being told to refund taxes based on a lower assessment.
Okay, not our actual assessment. Okay, thank you.
I also just wanted to add regarding the salaries lines. One reason that we've seen savings in full-time salaries in particular so far this year, in addition to the vacancies and some of the positions in our staffing model, resignations, we also have several full-time staffers who've been on unpaid leave. And you'll actually notice that the part-time salaries line has actually been increased. One reason for that is because we've actually had to hire multiple temporary part-timers to cover the hours of these full-time staff on leave. So the adjustments to the salaries lines, it's not as if we're cutting staff or anything like that. It's just these temporary vacancies, these resignations that maybe it takes a month or two to fill, sometimes longer with certain positions. But all of that just results in these updated projections, which we feel at this time are more accurate than what the initial projections were.
So with the salaries in the employment, that was a reason for us to go for an increase the tax rate, right? So when are we going to be where we need to be for what we ask the taxpayers for? In reference to employment, what is the projection to be where we told people we want to be?
Well, go ahead.
A lot of that just depends on our ability to fill our staffing model and retain staff. Obviously we did pass a new union contract. Minimum wage has gone up. We have a raise structure for the next 3 years that we have to abide by. So I mean, salaries are going to keep going up year to year as they always do, and it's just going to be a matter of our ability to retain staff. If we go a full year with a fully staffed staffing model, then those initial projections might not even be high enough.
I definitely get that, right? But our staffing model has never been what it's supposed to be. It doesn't seem like it's going to get there. So do you anticipate the asking taxpayers for more money for salaries that we don't have?
I can't say at this point whether we're going to ask for an increase or not. I mean, I can certainly say the projection for next year's salaries is going to be higher than this year's. The remainder of the budget, obviously there's other lines. If we see a significant savings in utilities, for example, our New York State retirement liability, there's a lot of variables there. So I can't really say for sure whether or not we'd definitely want to go for an increase next year based on salaries alone.
So I asked Ms. Do you have a projection for when we'll fill our staffing model that we ask the taxpayers for?
Well, first of all, I want to remind the board that we went for the increase this past year for multiple reasons. One was to address the union contract, the renegotiated salaries, and make sure that we had enough to give people some raises, which we happily did. Another reason we had to ask for it was because utility costs have gone up. And another reason was just inflation. So all of that was kind of the undergirding for the tax levy of last year. It wasn't to increase our staffing levels at all. It was really to help us. We didn't add new positions. Well, technically we added 2 positions, but that was a gain that we could see as a result of the change to the HR generalist position and some other factors. So
so you're saying
emphasize that point.
Okay, so you're saying that what you're saying now is that the increase that we asked these taxpayers for had nothing to do with increasing the staffing in the library? Is that what you're saying?
Nothing to do with adding positions, no. No, that was just to keep our current positions in a state of, equitable pay, and it was to keep our buildings running, and it was kind of to keep status quo. Although we have done other things to help address the thin staffing across the organization, like the hours change, but that's another topic. I just want to stick to what your concerns are.
The question was just specifically if you're saying that the increase that we asked for, as you stated, you're saying right now had nothing to do with increase in staffing at the library.
Correct.
May I? Also, I remember a lot of the discussion was how much we would have to go into our fund balance. And that was also part of the reason why we went for the increase, if I remember correctly.
Yeah, that's accurate. So without the amount that we were able to get approved by the taxpayers, we would have had to go deeper into our fund balance in a way that would set us up for the opposite of sustainability in the next few years.
Very different conversation than I remember. over multiple meetings.
Any other discussion on the board modification? Would anyone like to make a motion to adopt the recommendation of the Audit and Finance Committee?
It's coming from committee.
Oh, okay. So we just need to
Just do
make a vote.
Mm.
All in favor? Aye. All opposed? One. So with 8 of in favor and 7. Who's missing?
Tom.
Oh, right. I'm sorry. Okay. So 7 in favor and 1 opposed. Is there any public comment? Okay. I'd like to make a motion to go into executive session to discuss discussions proposed or pending current litigation, collective Article 14 of the Civil Service Law, medical and financial and credit employment history of a particular person or corporation. Oh, all right. That's good. That was last. Yeah, I like going to executive session to discuss our current council. To make a motion.
Yes. I move to go into executive session to discuss credit or employment history of a particular person or corporation.
Second. All in favor? Aye. We're now in executive session.
And I'd just like to say thank you, President Pryor, for your work in keeping this on the table as well.
Thank you.
Okay, for anybody who is watching from home, the board is going into executive session. It will be noted in our minutes when they come out of executive session and if any votes were taken at that point. Thank you and have a nice evening.